What happens in Georgia gets revealed one by one as the facts are unsealed. From the pit comes what they don't want you to see. When the daily nugget of truth is dropped with your host, BKP.
Professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call U.S. Asset Management today, and let's get to work in your financial future.
Hey folks, good morning, good morning. I'm your host, BKP. We are back. It's been a couple days, a lot going on. Welcome this morning. We are back. I'm your host, BKP, and you're watching BKP Politics on voiceofruralamerica.com. voiceofruralamerica.com. Now, I know that I have put several articles out, and it's been several days since we did a video, so we apologize for that, but we've been a little busy studying the political landscape here in Georgia. But that being said, don't forget you can go to our Substack. That's Vora, V-O-R-A, at BKP Politics. Subscribe to our Substack. We want to tell you how much we appreciate each and every one that are paid viewers over on Substack. That helps us bring the program. But Tuesday night was election night. Primary. Today is Thursday. So, first of all, let's get all these out of the mailbox, right? Oh, are we tired of these? Wow. So let's get these out of the mailbox. And yes, I am wearing a Georgia Bulldog, my Gunner Stockton Georgia Bulldog jersey today. Because there's something I'm going to put on the screen momentarily. That just frustrated me to the point I had to do the Go Dogs. All right, let's get started right into it. Tuesday night was election night. Rick Jackson, he came in second. Rick is very angry. Mr. Jackson is very angry. Okay. Let me get this right here for you. Now, before, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to break down Rick Jackson spending $100 million or $84 million and several $1 million coming from dark money that we have not tied to Mr. Jackson, but let's just say $100 million was spent. $84 million we understand from Rick Jackson and the balance from somewhere else to try to not run against Burt Jones. We always have to remember that. We found the point where we determined here to destroy Burt Jones. Yes, and we put that out in the article. But to come in second place. Yes. To come in second place. Now, this is a graphic. Someone said it was a lie, and no, it wasn't. Someone said that I photoshopped. This is before the election night campaign headquarters for Rick Jackson. They were going through the graphics and testing the graphics. And they were so sure that they had this first place finish, right? They were so sure they had this first place finish that they, put up a graphic testing it saying Rick finishes first. Well, he didn't. So Rick Jackson, we're going to show you everything. He got very, very angry Tuesday night. Now, I'm just going to tell you something right now. Obviously, I'm not a billionaire. I'll share with you I'm not a millionaire. But what I will tell you is You don't spend $84 million, right, to come in second. Because if you're not first, you're what? You're last. So no, Jackson was not happy whatsoever to get on that stage and say we went to a runoff. We're on our way to a runoff. No, and here you go. Here's our vote count, and we'll get into that. Now, as we go through here, I'm going to try to get everything lined up. I have my pictures in order, I think, today. So, not only did Rick Jackson come in second place, he also was what, 5.4 or something like that, over 5% below Burt Jones. Now, what happened to all the polling? We will show you that. What happened to all that polling? What happened to Rick being outside the margin of error? What happened to early on when Rick exploded onto the scene? What happened to... there was a time Rick Jackson in polling went above Burt Jones, all the polling, and Jones never recovered from. What happened? Right? Now, here we don't totally trust polling. We just don't. We show you polling. They try to use different metrics, right? But this is what happened, over a 5% move for Burt Jones. So we'll go with another one here, and this is kind of nice. I like this, that the Jones campaign, having a little fun, took the Rick finishes first, scratched out first, and put second. So we're going to show you everything. That's one thing about this program, BKP Politics, just a nugget of truth with BKP. We show our work. I'm old school. I show my work. So here you go. Rick Jackson finishes second. Now, I had a little fun, Rick Jackson believes hard work should be rewarded, right? There's the Cheetos, remember? So I put out there, I didn't want people to, please do me a favor, don't call Rick Jackson and tell him that I actually Tuesday night was sitting on the couch watching election results eating Cheetos, remember? You can't sit on the couch and eat Cheetos if you're Rick Jackson and the government pay for it. I bought my own Cheetos, Rick. So that's my little joke. Now, before we go, and we're going to this morning, the Jackson campaign, we're going to show you Tuesday night how angry they were. Rick was very angry. And second, their response. Now, when you're going into a runoff, because Burt Jones and Rick Jackson are headed to a runoff June 16th, will be the runoff. We have other runoff elections that we will go through. We'll go through all the runoff elections that are happening June 16th in other races. But we're going to expose in great detail, because I have, the Jackson campaign, for Rick Jackson to go around and tell his sad story of his foster care and get all teared up and how he had to drive his mom home drunk at 9 years old and his uncle drove him the defects and I get it. But after all that and his faith in God and riding the church bus, you would think they could back away just a little bit from lying about their opponent. If you want to run against your opponent, if you want to push on your opponent, if you want to expose something about your opponent, go for it. It's politics. Go full steam ahead. But out and out lie. So instead of coming out with a positive, right, a positive direction for Rick to maybe, catapult to win in June, they immediately come out with a lie, the campaign, about Burt Jones in a video. We're going to break it down in full detail. Okay, full detail. It really got me. And I tell you what, I have made a determination the other night that, I sit here and I am determined that I will not let this campaign that is we're going to show you that too, a production, just get away with lying. I don't care. I'll be here 7 days a week. I have to. It's not going to be okay. We're not going to let it go. Now, moving right along, before we get into that, let's go right here. Brad Raffensperger is gone. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger will finish his term, and he will be out. He is gone. He lost the election. He was on the ballot as a Republican. We know that battle. We'll talk about that one day. But voters came out, and he went to third place, and he is no longer after his term is up here. Gabriel Sterling on the Secretary of State race, he is gone. So here's two people that you can drink your coffee, get all excited. They're gone. Gabriel Sterling, he is no longer with the Secretary of State's office. I don't know if he will go back there and work. I don't know that. Not opening that can of worms. But Gabriel Sterling is gone. He ran for Secretary of State. He's no longer there. A little side note, when we get there, I'm not shocked with the runoff candidates for Secretary of State. We'll get to that a little later today. Now, Democrats are the gift that keeps on giving. And I'll tell you why. All right, I'll tell you why. I thought after Stacey Abrams with 2 terms of Brian Kemp that they would not do it again. It's like Yogi Berra says, right? Deja vu all over again. Democrats, all I'm going to say to you, you had candidates like Jason Estevez, right? And Michael Thurman. You had Michael Thurman that the cat is out of the bag. We already know it, but we'll say it publicly. Jason Estevez and Michael Thurman, but Michael Thurman, that Republicans were very nervous would be your nominee because, yes, don't get mad at me, just a messenger Republicans would vote for. But you gave us Keisha Lance Bottoms. So, unusually, I don't do this very often, but let's just take a moment and thank Democrats for what you did Tuesday, giving us Keisha Lance Bottoms to run against. We'll take it. I didn't think you would do that twice, but you did. So there you go. Now, let's go here for a minute to the Senate because we're going to get to Rick Jackson. I just want to go here because this is the top of the ticket, and I'm going to do a breakdown hopefully later in the week with this, all right? Derek Dooley, Brian Kemp on stage. Derek Dooley makes the runoff. Now, Buddy Carter, in transparency, I voted for Buddy Carter. I don't use the word endorse. But remember, Mike Collins' campaign, Brandon Phillips looked me in the eye and said he didn't want my vote. Don't forget that. That's a side note. So I don't care. I will tell you, Tuesday I went and voted for Buddy Carter. All right? And he spent a lot of money. Congressman for the 1st District. We wish you well, Buddy Carter. But Derek Dooley is in a runoff against Mike Collins. Now, in my opinion, you don't go after Brian Kemp. Relax. I always can hear through the camera. I can hear you. I know you for years. All the things you say. But let's go through this before I talk about their response. Here's Derek Dooley. All right. Now I'm going to show you why I'm wearing my Georgia. It just got me. I changed. I had another shirt on and I was like, no, I've got to counteract what's about to be on the screen. So here you go. Here's Mike Collins, 40.5. Derek Dooley, 30.2. About a 10-point spread. But Buddy Carter, 25.1. In my opinion, not to go too far into detail, I want to break this down later in the week, okay? I want to break this down later in the week. Buddy Carter's 25.1. The percentage of those voters, how many will go back and vote in the runoff, I don't know. But I think Buddy Carter's voters will go to Derek Dooley. That's what I think. All right. I don't think I would have responded the way Mike Collins did the other night. I understand his frustration. I understand his anger. All right. Collins, this is a response to Mike Collins' War Room. The second place candidate is now on stage along with Derek Dooley. So they immediately come out and they attack Governor Brian Kemp. Immediately come out and attack Governor Kemp. So I'm going to play that for you right now. Okay, I'm going to play it right now for you. Just a little sound bite from Mike Collins on election night.
West Paces Ferry. I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it would be tough to run against an incumbent U.S. Senator. But y'all, what I didn't know is that I was going to have to face an incumbent governor in the primary first. But listen, looking at the result tonight, it shows that nominees are not picked on West Paces Ferry. And in November, we're going to show that Georgia's senators are not picked by California and New York donors. I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it would be tough to run against an incumbent U.S. Senator. But y'all, what I didn't.
Now, I really don't. I understand where he's coming from, and I get it, but I don't think I would have come out and attacked Governor Kemp. Now, again, I understand where Mike Collins is coming from. In a way, I don't blame him, but he said he knew it was tough to run against an incumbent senator, but he didn't know he was going to have to run against an incumbent governor. Everything he says is true. I would have held the powder, because if you become the nominee, Mike Collins becomes the nominee, folks, at the top of the ticket, the Senate. All right, if he becomes the nominee, Governor Kemp will probably say, I support the ticket, as he has in the past, and then turn around and go home. But you don't want him to come after you or work against you. I don't know that I would have done that, but I get it. I said that several times. But this is the top of the ticket. Now, let me give you a little bit here. And this is why, you see why I'm wearing my Georgia. I had to counteract. I could not put that much orange on the screen, okay, and not counteract that. I just couldn't do it. But whether Mike Collins likes it or not, we have the programming we've done in the past. We have the articles we've done in the past about Brian Kemp and Donald Trump not supporting the same candidate. Remember, the Senate, the U.S. Senate Republican primary in Georgia has no Trump endorsement. No Trump endorsement, okay? And Brian Kemp has taken a guy, now in Georgia, let's not offend anybody, but in Georgia, college football is almost like a religion. I told someone yesterday, you have to end a sentence every once in a while with "Go Dogs," right? Brian Kemp has taken a mediocre coach at best, a guy that was wearing orange on the sideline, that's as far as we'll go, that hasn't voted, in 20 years. Look, he has no voting record whatsoever. And he put him on the stage. He's in a runoff. Okay? Now, that's the top of the Republican ticket, will be Mike Collins or Derek Dooley. Mike Collins is the nominee, different story. This guy's the nominee, different story. Now the reason, and we'll do a full workup on this, because let's remember what we're up against. Jon Ossoff, and yes, a Senate majority PAC dropped that $20 million reservation. You got it? A PAC, not Jon Ossoff's money. There's a couple things you got to remember in the Senate race. That Jon Ossoff is the top fundraiser of any candidate right now in the United States, period. Democrat, Republican. Our candidates do not compare. Now this PAC, Democrats reserve a $20 million in TV ads to back Jon Ossoff re-election bid. This PAC booked $20 mil already, not even digging into Ossoff's campaign funds. That's what we're up against. Now, the last thing I'll say about the Senate, because we're going to do a full breakdown, I'm looking at down ballot. Right now, everything I focus on from here on out is how to win in November and what affects my life and yours. Now, the federal government affects our life. It really does. Okay? But the real office in the state of Georgia that has an effect on your life and my life every single day is the governor's office. Period. When you go out in Georgia and you drive down the road and you pay a tax, the government of Georgia, the state government, affects your life. You pay for gas, it affects your life. You go to buy something, you go to trade something, sell something, regardless of what you do in Georgia. I think off the top of my head, the governor gets 4,000 appointments. You go to court in Georgia, it affects your life. What I'm getting at now is the U.S. Senate seat, Jon Ossoff, Derek Dooley, whoever it may be. I'm telling you, that individual does not have the effect on your life daily as a resident in Georgia as the governor's office. And that's the office that I will move this over here, this over here. I will do whatever I have to get that office in the right hands. Preferably, number one, not a Democrat. So the top of the ticket, go down ballot, okay? If Ossoff wins by 5 or 6 points, we'll go with 5, and it could happen, it could spell disaster down ballot. That's what affects your life. Secretary of State, governor. Not so much the lieutenant governor, because they will follow the lead of the governor's mandate, depending if it's a Republican. So at the top of the ticket, we have to have someone that could battle Ossoff. We'll talk about that more next week. All right. Now, let's go into the Rick Jackson campaign. All right. And let's go just a little bit down memory road, right? First of all, last year, we got to do a little background. We won't do much. Because this guy, they put together a Hollywood-type scripted campaign, slogans. They did the research of the algorithm. There's a program, let me explain that to you right now. There's a program that can go on all social media and search all conversations, public conversations of algorithm, and pick out the top things that are being talked about. So if it's property taxes, boom, they can filter it down in this right here. No matter what it is, they can pick out the top things. So the Rick Jackson campaign comes out. Now I call it fraudulent. That's been determined, and they put together this fraudulent front to go out and sell. They do the emotional side. We know that. They go to the room and they have you in there, And, at first, they're telling you the sad story. Remember, right? If you ever woke up at 3 a.m. and turned on the TV, you did one or two things. You got saved, or you dialed in on how to become a millionaire. You only had two choices at 3 a.m. Give your life to Christ or buy this guy's plan to be a millionaire tomorrow. Well, Rick Jackson went out on the road and did a 3 a.m. buy my plan to become an instant Georgia success tomorrow, like I did from foster care. And that's really what it was, okay? I'm not surprised they weren't selling the video cassettes at the back of the room when he was done with his tearful moment. Listen, little programming note, 100% support our children, taking care of our children, the welfare of our children, and taking care of foster care kids. So I'm not making light of that. But Rick Jackson's the one that used that for his own personal gain. Now, so back in, when we're trying to watch college football, we start getting in November and December, right, these ads from Georgians for Integrity. This is the 18 million or whatever. That is dark money, right? Dark money, 18 million or whatever that is put out there, laying groundwork and just going after Burt Jones. Everything they could go attack. Now, again, Rick Jackson and his campaign deny any kind of ties to this, but this is where he started. Now, right here, then you have in February. In December, they got together, laid out the Hollywood script, started hiring producers, cameramen and women, or people, I don't know what you call them anymore, right? But they started hiring those people and hiring a team and publishers and, you have your paid agitators. Well, he went around the state and secured his not paid protesters, paid, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, here it is. This is the kickoff. Jackson in February. I was in this room. This is where I started. So I was in that room when that happened. I watched the whole production. Okay. So this is in February. He comes down and he starts the production. And then after that, his team started, just giving you some things. They might not be clearly in chronological order, but his team starts getting him in front of the soft interview to get him out there. So if you need a soft, very, very soft, what flavor ice cream do you like kind of interview, you go over to see Martha Zoller. Just saying, bada bing, bada boom. But, you go over to see Martha Zoller. So he did that. He started doing that. And then we have what I consider, I don't have the documents. Then he starts racking up the paid endorsements, because remember in December, he sent Donald Trump $1 million, right? So he started racking up the paid endorsements, as I consider. I was told Newt Gingrich does nothing without getting paid. That's what I was told. So he comes out for Rick Jackson, and then Rick Jackson cannot sell himself. We'll show you this in a minute. He cannot sell himself as a Trump supporter. We exposed that. So he has to go find someone else that supported Trump. I mean, this guy had to go get a stunt double. Now, Bubba's McDonald's a little older than Rick, but Rick Jackson could not present himself to people as a Trump supporter. So what did he do? He went and got a stunt double to step in. That's Bubba McDonald, right? Well, Bubba supported him, right? First to endorse Donald Trump, so we got that, right? And then we got John King, the insurance commissioner. We picked him up. Now, he's spending a lot of money. And when everything is done and over and the dust settles, as they say, you will be able to go find all this money. No, you won't. No, you won't. It's politics. You won't be able to find all of it, but it'll start to surface. Like, these people don't do, they don't do anything. You're not a volunteer. They're not a volunteer. These people are not a volunteer. Period. All right. Leave it at that. Now, what happened to the polling, right? Everything was produced. And that's what I'm getting at. We're going to get at how angry he was on election night, right? How angry when the tables turned for him and the lie he just told. He could not, when I say he, the campaign put out. Because they're splitting every word I say. They're watching every single word. All right? So the campaign, it says Rick Jackson. I'm going to read it to you in a minute. It's a flat out lie. But remember this, right? Then they started bragging. Now, I did not go to that. Remember the polling came out that they showed that Rick Jackson was ahead, and they started going after Burt Jones as second place Jones. Remember that? They were going out second place Jones and enjoying it. Well, here's Rick, 33%, right? And then you have, remember this one? I only picked out a couple. And then you have right here, Governor Rick Jackson, 31, Burt Jones, 27. This was May 17th, right? This is May 17th. The primary was May 19th. And here's real clear politics, and we'll end with this, right? Jackson always had an average of +3. Insider advantage, Jackson had a +4, +5, +1, +2, +3, right? Going all the way back to, this one goes back to April 18th. A month ago, Jackson was up. What happened? So they had all the polling data, and then he went and got all the endorsements. Remember here, now we don't have a dollar figure, but remember who broke that here, right? I told you we don't have a dollar figure. We don't have the staff to go through that. If you go through that and send it to us or start to find it, we'd love to see it. But here is an example, Scott Hilton. And we always said we know the reason why Scott Hilton endorsed him. But then Rick Jackson's campaign, right? We broke that story that rumor was he was going to drop an enormous amount of money in the Republican House leadership PAC for all these endorsements. So what they did is they set up all these stops, tried to get reps over there to endorse while they were there. You can go through his X account and just look at all the endorsements. Remember, he got all these endorsements. He got backed by all these people on the campaign trail. Now, then we have what I consider the paid, cheering section, right? The cheering section. And they did this on purpose. Everything, see, I exposed, when I say I just don't take that wrong. I'm not trying to use the I too much, but I exposed that. Remember, this is the first show that really exposed that his campaign staff was calling out in front of the stops, trying to schedule who sat on the front row, trying to make sure certain ethnic groups, age groups, people were there to take pictures with him. Media, certain media that, hey, Rick, we heard you like vanilla ice cream. Do you ever put a slice of apple pie with it? Do you live dangerously, Rick? Right? They went to all that media. They staged every single event. Then every event they went to, when I say every, that's a big word. Every event they went to, they attempted to hire someone in that area if they could find a mover and shaker. So they would go to an event, I don't care, and they're on social media. They know they are. They know who they are. I don't know how exactly they're getting paid, but I do know this, right? Because the people call me. They call and they tell me. They were offered a job and didn't take it, or they were offered a job and did take it. So what they would do is they go in and they say, okay, they start calling the GOP chairs. No matter what anyone tells you, this is what happened. They start calling the GOP chairs and saying, hey, when we get to your area, who is the top volunteer? Who really goes after people on social media? Maybe that's not the quote they use. Who really is the mover and shaker there? And they try to bring them on board. I'm just saying. So, and everywhere they go, they had the production team do the reels. I mean, you got to realize when I say Bert came in first, there's a runoff by 5 points. I'm showing you what was overcome that these people did. I mean, I showed you in video in the past, production vans, right? Production vans. I showed you that. I showed you the whole team. They got a cheering section. They pay for the cheering section. They're like a movie. In a movie and they do a stadium scene and they put out a call for extras and everybody gets $50 to stand up in the crowd. Now, I don't know that they paid them, but that's exactly what they did all across the state. Okay? Now, that's why Rick was angry. Now, this is where the tables turned. Now, I had been studying Rick at his campaign and going through a lot of research. And the video is out there today, and I appreciate my good friend that put the video out. But this is where the table turned. We're going to show you where the campaign turned and got exposed. Now, another thing we'll get to in a minute. The majority of primary Republican voters are senior citizens. And that's who he went after. And Bert still came in first. I would get phone calls. Man, I don't know. Rick Jackson had a full room today. I don't know. Rick Jackson had a full room today. You know what? It was senior citizens, man. They're coming out. They're coming out. Bert still won first place, or he came in first place. The win is June 16th. So this is where the tables turned for Rick Jackson. We're going to get to what really made him angry. We're going to get to the fact. If you stay with me, you're going to hear the fact. If you thought for 1 second this guy likes Donald Trump, okay, he does not like Donald Trump. Oh, no, he does not. Now, so this is a Politico article, and this is a Politico article. One man in the crowd asked Jackson to explain he had donated to former Liz Cheney, a longtime Trump critic who voted to impeach President Trump. Remember, Jackson's answer was just like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. I will admit I was late to the Trump train. This is Banks County. Now, I've already started working on research. So after this gentleman asked this question that night, I took the microphone and I asked Mr. Jackson on video. I said, Mr. Jackson, you gave $550,000 to Jeb Bush in 2016, an opponent of Donald Trump. You supported Jeff Duncan. You supported Nikki Haley in 2024, right up to 2 weeks before she got out of the race, an opponent to Donald Trump, right? You, during this time, you did give $1 million December 2025 to President Trump, which President Trump said donations after I won don't count. But Mr. Jackson, while giving money to these people along with Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp and Jeff Duncan, Nikki Haley and Jeb Bush, how come you could not find $1 for candidate Trump? And that one knocked him out of the driver's seat there that night. He cannot sell you in any way whatsoever. This gentleman had asked the question, It made political. It turned. Then remember this. I gotta do it in. Then I wrote a couple articles. We put this out. This is the picture. I think her name is Jade. I don't want to mess it up. But this is Rick Jackson walking into an event that they wouldn't allow me in. Remember that Sunday? I went down. I was going to go to an event in East Ellijay, Georgia, that they publicly invited everybody to, and they stopped me and said they would forcibly remove me from inside. Yes, the Jackson campaign. And I stood outside and took these pictures, and at this time, I'm yelling from the parking lot out by the road, Mr. Jackson, why can't I come into your event? Right? Remember this? It turned. Now, let me wrap something up because we're going to get into Tuesday night. This man's angry, very angry. Republican candidate for governor of Georgia, Burt Jones, advances, endorsed by President Trump. President Trump, you see, billionaires like Jackson, they make investments, okay? Let me see if I can get some coffee going here. Billionaires like Jackson, they make investments, all right? When they make investments, they like to make money. Rick Jackson's not doing this because he loves you out there on the campaign trail and wants to be your next governor. This guy is an investor. This guy is growing his business. I'm going to show you what I have the full opinion, complete opinion, that this is all about. Oh yeah, I'm going to bring it to that. Stay with me, okay? Now, do not, if you voted for Rick Jackson in early voting and you found out later the fraud that the campaign is, you can come back. No questions asked. No one's going to be angry. If you voted for Rick Jackson and you are now clear that he does not like Donald Trump, go back and vote for Burt Jones. Now, in transparency, okay, I did vote for Burt Jones. I did not vote for Burt Jones because I made that decision when he entered the race. And Lieutenant Governor Jones knows that. He knows that, okay? I did not vote for Burt Jones because I had made a decision before Rick Jackson or after Rick Jackson. When Rick Jackson entered the race, I gave him about 5 weeks to see where he was going with his campaign. I did not come up to a full decision to vote for Burt Jones till about a week before the election. I always vote on election day. But I did vote for him, and I will vote for him now in the runoff because I'm very, very clear. You may not be happy with President Trump right now, and that's a subject in itself. But I tell you what, the bottom line is, Rick Jackson didn't like him before, in the middle, or now. So let me get this straight. Here's the bottom line. Rick Jackson invested in Jeb Bush. Donald Trump busted and sent that investment south. Rick Jackson invested heavily in Jeff Duncan. Jeff Duncan became a Democrat. He lost Tuesday night. But when Rick Jackson invested in Jeff Duncan, the dream boy Duncan was supposed to be governor one day. And guess what? Donald Trump destroyed that and ended that investment. All right? Then Rick Jackson invested in Nikki Haley. Heavily in Nikki Haley. Donald Trump busted that investment. And then Rick Jackson said, I'll just do it myself because I know why he's made all these investments. I'm going to show you why Rick Jackson, in my opinion, made all these investments and why he doesn't like Donald Trump. Then Rick said, I'll do it myself. He spent $84 million. There's no billionaire. There's no millionaire. People do not like to throw their money away. They like a result. And Rick Jackson did not spend $84 million the other night to come in second place and once again watch Donald Trump destroy his investment. So from this moment on, if you have anyone out there that feels in any way whatsoever that Rick Jackson supports Donald Trump, the answer is no, and I prove it. Now, moving right along. The AJC, we'll get into them in another day, right? The run-up to the runoffs in Georgia. The Georgia Trump test is back. Well, guess what? It happened. Now, let's go into Tuesday night, and I'm going to show you just a string of X posts. I don't even have them all. This is only a third of them. But Rick Jackson went to his X account Tuesday night and just went off. I mean, he really did. You could tell he's very angry. You could tell he's angry when he gets up on stage, what he says. Now, this is Tuesday night. Everything I show you right now. I don't care about titles or power, and I don't need the money. Well, what's he compensating for? I mean, what is he? Why does that bother him? He don't need the money. I don't need the money. I care about the mom working 2 jobs who needs groceries to cost less and schools to teach non-indoctrinated. I care about the dad who wants his kids safe, supports the police, and wants criminals held accountable. I care about the young couple trying to buy their first home. So, I'm doing this to put others first. No, he's not. No, he's not. I'm going to show you what he's doing, in my opinion. Oh, they're splitting every word. They're watching and listening to every single word, right? But this is what it comes out. Then, here's another one. I'm only going to go show you a couple. Here's another one. I'm going to win this runoff in 4 weeks, and I'm going to stop Keisha Lance Bottoms from ruining Georgia in November, period. I'm going to win, period. Here's another one. Then we're going to get to the lie and break it down. But this runoff is about more than taxes. It's about who you trust to fight for you. I do not trust Rick Jackson. I'm going to show you why. Because if his character and who he says he is, if it was factual, right? If it was factual, I wouldn't allow my campaign to go to the distance of spinning, embellishing a lie. I just wouldn't do it. So, where am I at here? But this runoff is more about taxes. The insiders want a governor they own. The lobbyists want a governor who will do what they say. The political class wants someone to protect the club, and Burt Jones wants to keep making money for his family. Now, anytime someone posts something, what's really bugging them? What's the flip side? You know, it's the old back and forth. I know you are, so what am I? I know you are, so what am I? Because he will always refer to Burt Jones making money for his family. But Rick Jackson spending $84 million that he could have fed a lot of hungry children, clothed a lot of children, housed, put a roof over the head of a lot of children, built children homes, or paid off taxes for the widows he's concerned about. But he never says make money for his family. See, there's an opposite. Everything he says, you got to flip it back over. He attacks Burt Jones. He attacks Bill Jones, his dad. He attacks the family. To me, he attacks hard work. And I do not know, and I will not look the camera in the eye because I look people right in the eye when I talk to them. All right? He will not go after others that fit the description. I don't know the Jones background 100%. On face value, just looks like a family that barbecues together, works together, makes money together, and yes, maybe something in politics showed them a favor, not made a favor, or favored them. Maybe something favored them. But my God, Rick Jackson, how the hell can you bring up Bill Jones, Burt Jones, and his family and say politics favored them when it seems like your friend Jeff Duncan and Brian Kemp were shoveling money out the window to the tune of $1 billion to you? And you just can't say that and leave it lay without someone pushing back. And I guess that's going to be me. The political class wants someone. I don't care about joining their club. In fact, I'm running to break it up. No, he's got a 47,000 square foot mansion with at one time, we don't know now, an illegal that was painting the mulch. Let's see what I have here. Next one. These are all election night. Now he's angry. This guy did not spend $84 million. He had the graphic, Rick finishes first. It was all ready. I don't need the money. I don't care about the title. Right? Because I know what opportunity can do when someone finally gets a fair shot. And I know what happens when the government forgets who it serves. Burt Jones has forgotten. Well, let me just say this, okay? For those out there, Burt didn't do this and Burt didn't do that. The lieutenant governor's office is not a magic place, okay? It's not. We'll go into that on a different day. Now, here's another one, right? The anger. I'll bring a business mindset to Georgia and partner with President Trump to deport criminal illegals, cut taxes, crush woke ideology, and support law enforcement. So he's going to work with President Trump. This guy does not like President Trump. We've established that. We're not still looking into that. That's been established. Here's another. These are all election night, right? Now, he is so mad at President Trump on election night and today. His campaign went back. They're regrouping. I don't know if they've put anything up while I'm on the air. But they're trying to figure out, wait a minute. Well, I know this. When I say I know this, I've seen this happen. Rick Jackson did not spend, I tell you what, I would say it was a loud room when they got back to the office. I would say if I was a mouse in the corner of that Rick Jackson campaign office that night, I bet you he lost his SHI asterisk. I bet he ripped those people. I bet he looked across the room and said, I've never spent $84 million to come in second in my life. You people are here for a reason and only here for one reason only, that I win, nothing else. So guess what? I didn't lose tonight. You guys failed. I mean, I could just hear that in that room. I'm telling you. I wish someone would leak what happened that night, because there's no way a CEO. I've been in the room, okay? I have been in the room where a CEO walked in and our sales went down company-wide 3 months in a row, and I know what happens. And, you're sitting at the table at the conference room, and you don't know if they're going to fire you before the day's out because sales went, trust me, okay? This is no different. Now, again, I'll be President Trump's favorite governor. When he looks at Georgia, he'll see a state that is leading the nation, led by an outsider. All right? So, what do you mean you'll be Trump's favorite governor? Again, one more time, Rick, just in case you don't understand it, you are not his favorite candidate today. You're not. You're not his candidate of choice. Now, Rick, let me just share something with you one-on-one because I know your team is watching or someone's watching out there. President Trump likes to put up those wins. Oh, he loves it after an election. He puts up the Trump 9-0 in Georgia, puts up this. By the way, Trump, another story in itself, Thomas Massey lost the other night. So what you want us to believe is that Trump would have to come out and be, the media would rip him apart, that he lost Georgia in the race, but he's going to turn around and somehow you're going to become his favorite governor. Rick, we just don't fall for that stuff. Got it? So you're not going to be his favorite governor. Now, he's mad. These are the reasons he's mad. We're going to keep going here. President Trump deserves a governor in the state who will do more to take a picture, use his name, and not put in the work. He's endorsed by President Trump. President Trump came out the morning of Election Day. Go vote for Burt Jones. Did a teletown hall. 50,000 people. Go vote for Burt Jones. Endorse Burt Jones. And Rick Jackson. Donald Trump also said, what did he also say? If you gave money after I got elected, it doesn't count. So this weekend, my opponent said he was going to win without a runoff. Well, no surprise. Burt was all talk, no result. He isn't going to win the blank, 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 blank. I didn't put it all up there. This guy is angry. He's not going to win. I might have come in second place. He never says that, right? Barely more than 100 days ago, we sent an earthquake through the political establishment when we entered the race. I think it's safe to say we shook the career politicians up and insiders to these core. But the job is not done. We have 4 weeks to finish it, and the choice cannot be more clear. Let me explain to you in simple terms, because you are in Georgia. Coke is number one. Rick, one more time. You are in Georgia. Coca-Cola is number one. You are Pepsi. You understand? You're Pepsi. Got it? I just trying to break it to you so you can get it in those kind of terms. Okay? Now, let's go into the lie. We're going to break everything down. The lie. So you remember this. This is April 27th. Now, the Jackson campaign, I understand things can get a little hairy, a little dirty, right? They can get dirty and ugly, and people say things. I have no problem. It's politics. As Mike Huckabee once said, don't get into politics if you can't stand the sight of your own blood. But with Rick Jackson going around and crying his tears of knowing what it's like to be hungry and not have a family and not have a dad in the picture and an alcoholic mom that worked at the cocktail lounge and growing up in foster care, all that, and then the church bus taking him to church and his Christian views. But campaign, no matter what lie, stunt, scum, swamp, garbage you want to put out, I'm good with that. What? What do you mean you're good with that? Well, he didn't actually say that, but he puts his name on it. Well, here is Team Jackson. Bert's corruption is bad enough. He also voted to let illegals get out of jail free. He fought for them, not us. Burt Jones, illegal immigrants get out of jail free. Now, they know when they put this up, it's a lie. Burt cannot get someone out of jail. The legislation that we won't delve into is not exactly for people to get out of jail. They even went as low that someone put out a mailer with the guy, the illegal, I think it is, that killed Laken Riley, with Burt Jones voted to let illegals out of jail. I mean, Rick Jackson, you need to... Actually, I can't let someone that does this kind of stuff be in the governor's mansion. I mean, there's a lot of other things, but... So that one, I didn't have time last week, but that is a flat out lie. Now, this one comes from Rick Jackson, and this is where we're going to get into breaking this down, because I want you to go away and be able to explain this as already making the internet. Now, Tuesday night, after he comes in second and he realizes, he lost in the Coke Challenge and he's Pepsi and whatever, and he's second place and he's mad at Trump, he's mad at his team. What do? Do they huddle up and come out with a positive, get out the vote, hey, come over to us, right? No. They go with a lie. And this came out Tuesday night, 28 seconds. And this is Rick Jackson. When I say his team, this is not his team. This is his X account. Burt Jones voted, let the government take Georgia's land with eminent domain. That is a lie. That is a flat out lie. Now, I will not just say it's a lie. I'm going to prove it's a lie. And I don't like this at all. Actually, he really made me mad. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play this lie. This is a lie as I play it. I'm going to set it up here. We're going to play it for you. Stay with us now.
This land was never for sale. The government took it anyway. That's because career politician... This land was never for sale. The government took it anyway. That's because career politician Burt Jones voted to let government take your land with eminent domain and build a gas station, data center, or whatever else corrupt career politicians want. Thanks to Jones, the insiders get what they paid for, and Georgia families get an eviction notice. Career politician Burt Jones. He's for sale, and Georgia is paying the price. This land was never for sale. The government took it anyway.
Now that's a lie. That is a flat out lie. Okay? And I'm going to break it down for you right now. Burt Jones voted eminent domain to take this land to put a gas station or a data center. Now, they want to put a visual out because Jones Petroleum, right? Gas stations, right? They want you to believe that him and his family, Bill Jones, the Jones Petroleum Corporation, they're just went up there, passed a piece of legislation. They're taking your land, putting a gas station, data center, you name it. Now this got me, and I'm not going to let it go. I just will not let this go, period. And let me show you why. Now, that being said, Rick Jackson cannot come out and go after data centers. We know data centers is a flashpoint with voters. We're going to do a full detail on that as far as a program. We will. And we know that. But before we get into data centers later in the week, remember, Data centers don't happen in 30 days. So these are things that have taken place over a course of several years. These are things that have been put in action, in months ago, years ago. Governor Kemp's well aware of them, and he is the governor in that office, Brian Kemp. So, and all things flow to the top, and that is the heavy-handed governor, Brian Kemp. So, Rick Jackson cannot go data center. Now, I know that's a flashpoint on Burt Jones. He can go data center on Brian Kemp because tax exemptions, credits, all the above, no matter who presented the bill, who voted the bill, Brian Kemp signed the bill. We'll go into that on a different day, okay? But the eviction notice. Now, there are two kinds of eminent domain. And when people just hear eminent domain, it sparks, they like, wait a minute, that sends some people off. And eminent domain, there's actually two kinds. There is public utility eminent domain, and there's blight. We're going to cover both, because the Jackson campaign can't tell the truth, and they could sit and lie and lead you to believe that someone has the power to take someone's land in 28 seconds. Now, the reason they want to do that is this is the scare. Okay, what can we do to put you in fear that if Burt Jones is governor, he's going to take your land and put a gas station on it? All right, moving right along. Now, so they have these bots. They have bots and they have these agitators. And immediately, this was put out. There's no name behind this, but this was put out. Too bad he expanded the powers in 2017 with HB 434. Just because it has been around doesn't mean he didn't vote to expand it and hasn't used it personally to personal benefit. Okay. Remember, HB 434 in 2017 was signed by who? The governor. Now, we're going to show you what these expanded powers mean. All right? So, let's go into this right here, the data center, because everything gets emotional, right? In April, Coweta County leaders voted 3-2 to rezone roughly 800 acres for Project Sales Campus, promoting a lawsuit by nearly 20 residents aiming to reverse the decision. The county's Board of Commissioners declined to comment on the pending legislation. So in April, Project Sales Data Center in Coweta County, I think it's 800 acres, is it? The county voted to rezone the land for the data center in April. Folks, this was done well in advance, all right? And it wasn't done in the lieutenant governor's office. This was done well in advance. Now, we're going to break it down, all right? So let's go through one side of the emotion. This has happened in the last 8 or 9 days. Now, we all have watched, most of us, Ainsley Brown, okay, in Coweta County, and the transmission line that's going to take their house, right? It's really gone viral. Single mom is given 2 months to leave beloved family home in Georgia as data centers devour rural land and power supplies. Okay, so let's go through one at a time here. Here is Ashley Brown. All right, Ashley Brown, 27, stands outside the Georgia home where she grew up, a property her family says could now be taken through eminent domain to help power an AI data center. Now, there's truth here. There's truth, but this truth, and this truth has to be attached to get the complete story. Now, I'm going to show you where this ties back into the lie that Rick Jackson is telling and why they're trying to pull emotional and they're trying to manipulate voters. They got to do something. They lost by 5 points after 84 million. They got to tell you anything they can. So now, eminent domain, as ugly as it sounds, is what they call the last resort. And there are legal a legal process you have to go through. Now, here's her mom, Brown's mother, Angela Hall, 49, escaped poverty and public housing to buy a rural Georgia property. She says she hoped to someday leave to her grandchildren. So this became very emotional. Now, here is the house, Georgia Power. Now, Georgia Power said it was aware of Ainsley. I say Ainsley. I think I said Ashley earlier, but Ainsley Brown's, right? Videos, and told the Daily Mail it spent months negotiating with mother and made her an offer that was 125% higher than her appraised value. But Hall ultimately chose not to finalize the agreement. Now, this is a like it or not. When they set the transmission line map, so don't throw this at me. This is something, and it didn't come out of the lieutenant governor's office. When they set the transmission lines map, eminent domain is the last thing they do, meaning go to court and get a judge to sign off, write you a check, and you have to get out. Point. Now, the reason I know this is I've done research on this in the past because about 15 years ago, I owned a property where high transmission lines were going across the mountain and they needed to come across a corner of my property. A guy knocked on my door one day, said, "You do know that transmission line is going over the mountain?" And I said, "Yes, I went to the meetings." Because what they did is they publicized meetings with maps that we could see the transmission line, okay? And we looked at the maps, we could see the transmission line, all right? That was first. I personally did this. Guy comes to my office, he said, "Look, we can show you on the map the area that we will have to have access, and this is what we're willing to give you for this corner of your property." And I said, no. Go back. And they said, okay. So they went back. Guy comes back a week later or whatever. And he said, look, they're willing to go to this. And I said, what happens if I say no? He said, we don't have there's not a lot more. This is way over and above what the value of that corner is. But you would be pushing them to go to court and actually take the corner. Now, I've experienced this, all right? So I said, here, let me write down what I want. I wrote it down. The guy came back with a document. I signed the document. I got the check. But if I would not have gotten signed that day on that document to receive a check, they would have went to court. An eminent domain would have took that corner and they'd have handed me a check for what their offer was. Now, this is not a like it or not. This is what happens, okay? But we're getting into, we will get back and get very clear on the lie, all right? So Georgia Power says we met with her. Now, there's two types of eminent domain. Now, the specific law giving electric companies and utility power companies in Georgia was enacted in 1897. In 1897, Georgia Code Section 22-3-20 allows companies building, operating electric plants to condemn land for power lines and related infrastructure. All right? Now, it was updated in 2006. We're going to give you the two updates. All right? It was updated in 2006. But This right away for power lines, right? Infrastructure, needed infrastructure that they could prove. This eminent domain has been on the books in Georgia since 1897. Now, I can already hear you through the camera. Are you telling me that they could just say the power line's going this way? Pretty much. But I have seen a situation where citizens got together and they moved the power line. I've seen that. It can happen. But if they really want to push it, there is a law in the book since 1897. Now, let's go through one at a time. We're going to do this because we're going to do it properly. So when you get done, you can go tell your friends, Rick Jackson's campaign lied about Burt Jones once again. Okay? He cannot just take your property. I don't like that. Now, what is the Kelo decision? What was it? Now, let me explain this to you also in another way. Again, remember, there's two kinds of eminent domain. There's high power transmission lines and there's blight. All right? Condemnation, you can condemn a piece of property. I have went through that with Fannin County. I watched the whole entire case with Fannin County and know it very well where they condemned the property. Yes, I've seen it go through court and everything. Now, in 2005, the Supreme Court, you got it? In 2005, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that the city of New London, Connecticut could use its power of eminent domain to seize private homes and transfer the land to private developers. All right? Got it? This is called the Kelo decision. And it's a Supreme Court decision. Now get this in mind. The Supreme Court, not Burt Jones, Rick Jackson. Burt Jones didn't do this. No. Not even Brian Kemp did it. The Supreme Court said that New London, Connecticut, that they could use the power of eminent domain to seize private property, private homes, and transfer the land to private developers. Right? To gas station owners, factory owners, shopping malls. That's a Supreme Court decision. Historically, eminent domain was used for obvious public use, right? This is where there came a eminent domain, what I call Part B, right? Public use, like building highways, schools, and public utilities. However, the court ruled that economic development, taking the land to build a commercial facility that would theoretically create jobs and generate higher tax revenue, also counted as valid public use under the Fifth Amendment. Supreme Court, not Burt Jones, Rick Jackson. I know they got to hate me over there because they're not going to get away. I'm not going to let them just get away with this lying. Now, moving right along, continue as we expose. The state of Georgia responded to that. What did we do in the state of Georgia? We said, hold on. We want to put some guardrails in place to protect the people, right? We did not want this Supreme Court. Now, states were allowed to do this. They were allowed to set rules. They couldn't go against the Supreme Court and say, you can't do it, but they could set rules of how you do it. All right? So the state of Georgia said in 2006, or when did that go through? Let me check this. Hold on. When was that? Wasn't that a Supreme Court? In 2005, right? So the state of Georgia in 2006 said, wait a minute. We're going to protect the people. And the ideal that the government could seize a family home just to hand the land over to wealthier private corporations terrified property owners across the country. While the Supreme Court allowed the practice at the federal level, they explicitly noted that states were free to pass their own stricter property protections. Georgia was one of the first and most aggressive states to do so. All right? Pay attention, Rick Jackson. I know you're listening. In 2006, the Georgia legislature passed the Landowners Bill of Rights and Private Property Protection Act, House Bill 1313, paired with the state's constitutional amendment that was approved 85% of the voters. So this is a constitutional amendment. Got it? Approved by the voters. Here is how Georgia legally neutralized the Kelo decision. Banned. Here's what was banned. Economic development. Takings. The law explicitly states that the economic development, increased tax revenue, or job creation are not public uses. A local Georgia government cannot seize your land just because a developer wants to build a shopping mall or factory on it or gas station. Can't do it. Okay? Redefine blight. Now, Georgia, this is where Georgia took eminent domain and put kind of a part B. There's public utilities and there's blight. We'll get into that. Redefine blight. Before 2006, cities could easily declare an entire area blighted. They could say the whole street, oh, that's blight. Tear it down, give it to a shopping center developed. All right? Or a whole block. They could call it rundown or hazardous to justify bulldozing for a private redevelopment. The new law required a strict parcel by parcel evaluation protecting well-maintained homes even if they are in struggling neighborhoods. So there was a time that you could take a whole city block and say, blight, tear it down. But this new law that was put in the Georgia State Constitution, right? HB 1313 said, no, if you want the whole block, you have to do it parcel by parcel. You can't deem the whole block. And if there's a parcel there, just because it's in an undesirable location, doesn't mean you get to just take it. All right? Forced accountability. The constitutional amendment required that any use of eminent domain for redevelopment must be formally voted on by elected officials, meaning politicians can no longer hide behind unelected development boards or zoning committees. Well, I know this for a fact because I watched it done up here in Fannin County. It went to zoning, it went to planning, it went to zoning. There was a process. The property was condemned. After they did everything, went to court, all the above, after they did everything, they had to take it to the commissioners. The commissioners that were the elected officials had to vote on it. And when they got done voting on it, it got condemned. And they tore it down. So that is another thing. Ultimately, the Kelo decision was a devastating loss for the original property owners in Connecticut. Now, this is where it changes. Let me give you this right here. Let's talk about blight, because this is what Rick Jackson wants you to believe, that if a house is not painted properly, Jones is going to take your home, right? We got the ad. We played that. Here it is. Under Georgia Code, OCGA 22-1-1, the legal definition of blight is intentionally strict and requires specific measurable hazards. A local government cannot simply declare a property blighted because it looks run down or sits in a struggling neighborhood. To be legally classified as blight for the purpose of eminent domain, right? And urbanized or developed property must pass two strict tests. One, the core hazard. The property must be actively detrimental to the surrounding area. The government has the burden of proof that the property is conducive to your health, right? Transmission of disease, infant mortality. A kid could get killed. I mean, kids playing in the neighborhood could go in an old haunted house and the floors fall in. Crime in an immediate proximity. All right? Now, this is blight. Number 2. That's the code right there. I'm sorry, the core hazards. Number 2. In addition to being a documented hazard, the property must also present at least 2 of the following 6 specific conditions: uninhabitable or unsafe, lack of basic utilities, unrepaired, disaster, damage, severe contamination. Actually, we have laws on the books that if they've been cooking meth in the house, they can condemn the property. Repeated illegal activity. The property is a hub of repeated activity that the property owner knew about. Chronic code violations. All right? So you just can't say blight and take someone's property. There's a lot of tests. I'm going to keep going through this. Now, here's another one. The ugly exemption. The law has an exemption for ugly. Your house could be ugly. You could be ugly. Your kids could be ugly. Everything could be ugly around the house, in the house, even your dog. But they can't take your house because it's ugly. Got it. Period. Right? The ugly exception. Georgia law explicitly includes a vital, straightforward protection for property owners. Property shall not be deemed blighted because of aesthetic conditions. Hey, if your paint's peeling, if you can get the community together to paint the house, but if you don't, they can't take it. Now, here is where they're going to try to say Bert can take your house. It's a lie. Rick Jackson, it's a lie, okay? Unintended consequences of the 20-year rule. Now, this is what changed, all right? I'm going to show you the law. This is what changed, okay? When Georgia originally passed its sweeping property protections in 2006, they included the 20-year rule. Now pay attention. It stated that if the government took your land through eminent domain, they could not convert the land to any private user for 20 years. So they go through the process. They say your house is condemned. It's a danger. It's a blight. They got to condemn the parcel. They go through all the legal action. They condemn it. Eminent domain. They cannot go and turn around and sell it. They cannot. Got it? All right. Now they updated this, but they can't. They can't do it. All right. And the 20-year rule in the 2005 bill said they could not transfer it. They had to keep it on the books of your city, your town, wherever, your county for 20 years before someone could do something with the property. This was designed to permanently stop kilo-style land grabs. A city couldn't seize your house for a public park, and then conveniently flip it, right, to a private developer a couple years later. However, this created a massive problem for cities trying to clean up genuinely dangerous neighborhoods. If the property was legitimately blighted, remember, abandoned, collapsed, a meth house, the city couldn't effectively step in. Even if they condemned it to clean it up, the 20-year rule meant they were stuck holding the empty lot for 2 decades because they were legally barred from selling to a developer to build a new house. I have personally seen every bit of this. I know where this has happened. Now that you know that, so it's clear. So here's what they're telling you their basis will be, that Burt Jones wants to take your property and put a gas station on it. Not true. Not true at all. So cities got together, right? Not Burt Jones, not Bill Jones. And I hate to keep bringing up Mr. Bill Jones, but the Jackson campaign keeps attacking his family, okay? And let me just, I've never met him. I've never met him face to face, shook his hand, never spoke to him. All right, I probably wouldn't know him if he walked in a room. That being said, right, what really happened here is small cities in the state of Georgia got together and they went to the municipal association. The counties went to the ACCG, the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. They all went to these and they said, look, we got to go to lawmakers. We got 5 vacant lots. I mean, we don't get tax revenue off of them. We do not get anything from them. We can't develop them. And we have to pay to maintain, cut the grass, whatever. It was those groups that went to lawmakers in 2017 and said, you got to help us out here a little bit, okay? I understand we can't just take people's property, but then again, you're costing the taxpayers of these little cities by us having to maintain them for 20 years. We need a little bit of leadway. That's what happened. That's the actual truth, Rick Jackson, not in your 28-second lie. Now, in 2017, there was an update called the blight exception, all right? To fix this, the Georgia legislature passed the 2017 update, which created a formal exception to the 20-year waiting period, but with very strict safeguards attached. Now listen, under the updated law, a local government does not have to wait 20 years to sell a condemned property to a private party. If and only if they follow this process. A court approval required. So whatever you think of the courts, it has to go to court. The city cannot just declare the property blighted on its own. They must petition a superior court and prove to the judge that the property meets the strict legal definition of blight, the 2-part hazard test we discussed earlier. The 5-year zoning freeze, okay? You ready? So if you think, here's what's going to happen. They're going to condemn your property, right? Turn around and sell it to a private party, and then the private party is going to go to your city and get it rezoned and build whatever they want. A gas station, because that's what Rick Jackson likes to always say, to give you the thought that Burt Jones and his family want to take your property to build a gas station, right? They can't do that. There's safeguards. Here's the safeguard. It's called the 5-year zoning freeze in 2017. If the judges agree the property is blighted, the city can seize it, clean it up, and sell it to a private developer immediately. The court has to say it. All right? City can't determine the blight, sell it, and it's done. They have to go and get the court to say okay. All right? There you go. Maybe, now, I know you might be sitting out there, well, the court will do it. Okay. But here's the catch, if you want to call it that. However, to prevent abuse, the 2017 law mandates that the property must maintain its current zoning classification for at least 5 years after the condemnation. So whatever class it's zoned at, it has to stay there for 5 years before the private party can petition to change the zoning and build something else. So if you got a parcel of land that is zoned residential, it gets taken for blight, eminent domain. A court says we approve it. They go through the steps and they sell it to a private party. The private party can't turn around, doze the property, clean it up, and build a gas station the next day. Go to get rezoning for commercial, build a gas station the next day. They got to wait 5 years before they can petition for the rezoning. All right. This 5-year zoning freeze was the legislative compromise. It allows cities to get dangerous properties cleaned up and back on the market quickly, but it completely removes the financial incentive for a city to abuse the system. A city cannot declare a modest resident home blighted just to bulldoze it. Immediate rezoning the land for commercial use and sell it to developers to build profitable shopping centers, or as Rick Jackson likes to say, gas stations. All right. Now, that is the truth of what happened. Let's see, I'm on 52, so let me get back here. That is the truth of what happened where Rick Jackson, see right here, the lie eviction notice, right? Let's see, I'm going to 53. Let me get that here. I want to read that. So when you see this ad, okay, when you see this ad right here, eviction notice, right? Burt Jones voted to let government take Georgia's land with eminent domain. It's just not true. They can't just take your land. They have to offer you something for the land. You can't take someone's land without an offer. That being said, and they just want to say you can condemn it and there's no value and they just take it. This is not true. Now, let's go back to the Georgia Power for just a minute, because while we're on this, I want to clean up the other side of eminent domain where you're seeing the, let's see, I want 53, where you see the young lady, very nice young lady, Ainsley Brown, and I want to say I am glad that she brought this to our attention. This is what Rick Jackson should really be worrying about. But let's go over this just briefly. The December 2025 PSC decision. Now remember, the PSC board, Public Service Commission, Republicans lost 2 seats. So they go back, and in December, a lame duck with Drew Eccles, what's his name? What Eccles? Tim Eccles? Is it Tim Eccles? Eccles. I don't want to say Drew. I think I got that. I think I have that wrong. Do not publish that, what I said. I think Eccles is the name. And Fitz Johnson. Is it Fitz Johnson? But anyhow, 2 Republicans lost PSC races. 2 Democrats won. But before they could take office, the lame duck committee approved this. And this is something that you got to watch for, and we need to change. On December 19, 2025, the Georgia PSC unanimously approved a historical and highly controversial request by Georgia Power to add nearly 10 gigawatts, not gigawatts, like Back to the Future, don't get that mixed up, gigawatts of new energy capacity to the grid, largely to meet a surging electricity demand from new artificial intelligence and data centers. All right? Now, they fall under public utilities. So once the PSC approves these kind of things, right, and they expand these power plants, it's a given these high transmission lines, they're coming through your neighborhood. And we'll see what happens in the court, and I'm glad people are fighting it. But this is something that is a done deal. Now, the interesting thing is they plan out the high transmission lines before the PSC approves it. Pay attention. So what happened for Plant Wansley, right? Wansley specifically, right? The December 2025 approval greenlit a massive overhaul for the site. Georgia Power retired the plant's coal fire operation in 2022, but the PSC decision allowed them to revive it as a natural gas and battery hub for building, right? So the Georgia Power officially broke ground on the expansion of the plant just a few weeks ago in late April of 2026. Now, it was approved in December, right? They just broke ground on it, but the high transmission power lines from that plant going to that data center in Coweta County, they were set up well in advance. That's right. So they already knew when they went into the room, the PSC, and voted that day, that these high power transmission lines were going through these communities, and it was a done deal. Now, they just didn't want you to know during the election. Now, let's see, the short answer. It feels backward. Why is power company mapping out route, holding public meetings, and threatening to take private homes for a project that hasn't even been legally approved yet? The short answer is that utility planning operations on a massive multi-year pipeline and transmission line planning runs parallel to it, or even ahead of it, the final political approval for the power plants themselves. Here's the breakdown why Georgia Power was already pushing the line in November 2025 before December 2025. So to change this coal-fired plant to a natural gas plant and crank it back up, Georgia Power in November that happened in December, the approval, right? Georgia Power was already holding meetings in November, the prior month, with homeowners. Now, for these homeowners in that area, they put up public maps, they hold meetings. There's no surprise here, really, but they actually look at you and say, you don't have a choice at the end of the day. This is how it works. The PSC vote is the finish line, not the start. When the Georgia PSC voted in December to approve the 10 gigawatt capacity expansion and the plant Wansley overhaul, that was just the final drop. So, let me move along in the interest of time here. The PSC vote is the finish line, not the start. Okay? Then you have the transmission line. It takes longer than the power plants. They lay it out because the land acquisition phase can take years, especially when homeowners fight back. Utilities start the sitting process and hold public input meetings as early as possible. If they waited until December 2025 approval to even start drawing the line maps, the infrastructure would be years behind schedule. Now, here's another thing. They are moving these things so fast that homeowners and people don't have the proper time and notice. The grid reality, you can read all this, the grid reliability, the grid reliability as a loophole. Even when plant Wansley expansion was technically still pending state approval, Georgia Power was already telling regional federal transmission authorities that the Ashley Park to Wansley line was needed immediately. So here's the thing, right? The documents filed as early as 2024 for the 35-mile line. This has been in the process for a long time. Now, I know this young lady, Ainsley Brown, has really put the light on this. Is great. But don't let any lawmaker excuse themselves from the fact that the data centers have been in the process for years. Rick Jackson won't say anything because Rick Jackson can't. He's invested in data centers out in Texas, and he does not oppose the data centers. All right. So these things have been going through the works, and you have a such thing called the Federal Transmission Authorities, because we have a national grid, a regional grid, a state grid, whatever. But they've been telling the Federal Transmission Authorities that this line had to be upgraded immediately. So there's a lot went into this. Now, yes, Georgia Power, yes, they did hold public meetings. Georgia Power hosted open meetings in November 2025 at the Coweta County Fairgrounds in Noonan, one at the 3 p.m. and another at 6 p.m. specifically to discuss the new transmission line project running through Coweta neighboring counties. Coweta and neighboring counties. They also sent direct notices to affected property owners and held community meetings in early 2026. So let me say this. Eminent domain is the last resort. Now, I don't know about this information. I was not there. So I don't know if these homeowners received all the proper documents, dates, times, notices. Not for sure. But I will tell you this. When I went through it, I was able to go look at the maps, like they say here. I had meetings. They made offers. So they followed a process with myself. I don't know about this one here, okay? But over 330 parcels with full property takes. Eminent domain is the last resort after negotiations. So what they say is, you know what? We will come in, we'll give you this much money for your home. Now, you can go to court. You can fight this. A group of attorneys or an attorney that can be had here. But it's not that these laws and these rules are not already on the books. Yes, for large ones. Now, I want you to know something here, okay? Let me get to this here. Georgia requires developments of regional impact, DRI studies, development regional impact studies, okay? And they're a review, basically a regional impact study for data centers that hit certain size thresholds. Outside the Atlanta region, it's for facilities that are 500,000 square feet or more. In Atlanta area, 300 square feet. In urban, suburban zones, 500,000 square feet. And rural properties. This, in rural areas, 500,000 square feet. This process updated in late 2025 by the Department of Community Affairs. Now, your county or city should be doing impact studies. So before your commissioners or your city council passes these things, they should be able to present to the public. Now, I will tell you this, legally they're not bound to it. And what an impact study does is it looks at your power usage for the new plant versus, will it be able to provide enough power for the community? Same thing with building 300 homes. When someone goes over to get a permit to build 300 homes, they have to look at the impact of the area and the water use. And does your county have enough water? Can they secure enough water? Contract with a neighboring water system to provide those 300 houses water. It's required for builders. It's required for shopping centers. It's required an impact large enough that could impact a neighboring county. Like the traffic getting there, a neighboring county may have to go through the expense of putting 3 traffic lights in, but they don't benefit from the tax revenue. There's a lot to that. I've been through it, I've seen it, and I've studied it. So you're supposed to have a developmental regional impact study And the commissioner should be able to give you that, or city council, to say, you have enough power. This is how it'll affect you. This is how the rates, you have enough water, all the above. So keep that in mind. Now, when you talk about AI as we wrap up, always remember, this is not negative Trump, but when you talk about AI and data centers, right, remember, President Donald J. Trump was inaugurated January 20th, 2025. His first Oval Office public meeting was January 21st. 20th, sworn in, 21st, this picture. This is Stargate AI infrastructure project. Larry Ellison, right? The guy from SoftBank. And what's that guy? Sam Altman. Remember, that's the first picture. They're moving the AI. They're moving the data centers. They're moving power plants. You need to come together as the people and move your local lawmakers and stop it. I'm not telling you that it's the worst thing. Now, let's go back to this right here. So I've showed you this, and I'm gonna give you. Let's go here because we're gonna close. All right. I've got a lot more to do this week. Where is it at? Here it is. Let's go to 27. Right here. So wrap up. Let me show you this wrap up. All right. Rick Jackson's running for governor. He lost by 5 points. He came in second. He's angry. He's mad. The campaign. They come out with a lie. First thing to do is come out with a Burt Jones lie. I will do everything I can just to focus on every lie they tell and expose it. Bottom line, I'm not going to let them get away with it. Now, that being said, remember this. Rick Jackson does not like Donald J. Trump. He does not. Bottom line, got it? Doesn't like Donald J. Trump. Trump ended Jackson's plans and investment with Jeb Bush. Trump ended Jackson's plans and investment with Jeff Duncan. Jeff Duncan's now a private citizen. He can get a job there. He's in the healthcare industry. Trump ended Jackson's plans and investment with Nikki Haley. And Tuesday night, Trump caused Jackson to come in second place with Burt Jones. So if you voted for Rick Jackson before we gave you all this information and proved beyond the shadow of doubt that he does not like Trump, does not support Trump, and is not interested in being with Trump, period, no one's upset. Come back June 16th and vote for Burt Jones. Now, generally, I don't say vote for. I don't. But I have to look you in the eye. People have said I'm a trusted source, and I appreciate that. I'm humbled by that. I appreciate that. I thank you very much. But one thing I won't do is mess that up. It won't happen. Got it? So that being said, I'm going to make sure I look you in the eye and say, yes, I voted for Burt Jones. I did. Now I'm telling you to go back on June 16th and vote for Burt Jones again. Right? I'm going to do it. And put him up against Keisha Lance Bottoms and win in November. Rick Jackson is his campaign produced, fraud, all the above. Now, I also told you this. Remember this, okay? What's the other one? We just pointed out to you that this is a lie, right? Remember, the campaign lied about Burt Jones getting illegals out of jail free, right? The eviction notice, this went out Tuesday night. So instead of the Jackson campaign, all right? Instead of the Jackson campaign, all right, coming out election night and finding something that, let me see, I want another one here. I'll get it really quickly. Finding something positive to try to say, all right, come on, let's regroup. They come out, first thing they do is lie. That's not true. You can't just take the land. You can't just do it. All right? You can condemn it. Eminent domain is possible. There's blight. There's power line transmission infrastructure, eminent domain. There's a process. So we know that. Now, let me wrap up here. Here's old number 31. Remember, I showed you this, right? I showed you this right here. Number 31. This is the night of, and Burt Jones wants to keep making money for his family. Folks, I feel as good today sitting here with you that I can look at the camera and say this right here, that this is the reason. Let me get it here. Shane. My opinion is Rick Jackson is doing everything he can for his empire. His empire. And that's his son, Shane. Shane is his prize. Shane Jackson, his son, I think he has 3 children, but this is the prize. This is the CEO of Jackson Healthcare. And every single thing he does is for Shane. I'm of the opinion he's running for governor to protect the family empire of Jackson Healthcare. And he's not running for you, he's running for Shane and the empire. That's just what I get to. There you go. Now, on Tuesday night, he said, well, here's what I need. I need Rick Scott. Wonder what he paid for this. I'm proud to endorse Senator Rick Scott, my longtime friend Rick Jackson, a rock-solid conservative, a successful businessman, to be the next governor of Georgia. I know what it's like for a conservative outsider and a businessman to come in and shake things up and take the state to the next level. I did it in Florida, and Rick will do the same thing in Georgia. Now, Rick Scott came in as a, billionaire? I don't know. Multi-mega millionaire, real estate investor in the state, outsider, became governor of Florida, actually became a pretty popular governor of Florida, then stepped in, and I think he's, a Florida state senator now, right? A U.S. senator in Florida, Rick Scott. So what does Rick Jackson do in the team? Okay, let's get angry. Let's put all these X posts out. Let's put out a lie about Burt Jones. And let's show the people who Rick Jackson can mirror that is a success. I tell you, they went into panic. Full panic mode. They went into full panic mode. Burt Jones has challenged Rick Jackson to a debate. I think they should debate 101, period. Let's close with this. I'm not surprised. I will go into detail. I've been on the phone talking to a couple people. I'm finishing up some analysis on this. But John Kennedy and Greg Dolezal are in the runoff for lieutenant governor. Now, Greg Dolezal, I'm not shocked. John Kennedy is just that. He's JFK. Got it? Now, Greg Dolezal is what? Greg Dolezal took a lane. David Clark was the most impressive candidate in the race. And I'll go into great detail later. Most impressive candidate in the race for Lieutenant Clark was for Lieutenant Governor of Georgia was David Clark. Most impressive. But you cannot have a centrist lane And I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to go into detail. People are going to say I'm leaving you hanging. But you got John F. Kennedy. His name's John F. Kennedy. And most voters were seniors. He's JFK. Simple as that, okay? And then you had Blake Tillery and you had Steve Gooch. All three, although Gooch is a conservative, although he did talk about Donald Trump and America first, still yet, that was more of a centrist lane with three candidates, David Clark, and then Greg Dolezal took his own lane. Now, can he win the runoff? Can he win in November? We'll discuss it. But Greg Dolezal took his own lane and went down it by himself. He bought the express pass, got on it. There was no traffic. He threw it out there, and the base came out, put him in a runoff. Now, the next one, we'll break this one down, I promise. Right? Secretary of State, Tim Fleming and Vernon Jones. I have tape. I told you this was happening. Ted Metz, a 5.6% candidate. Told you this was happening. Gabe Sterling, 11.9%. Kelvin King, right? Vernon Jones in a runoff. I'm not shocked. I will tell you this. I got to give a shout out to Chan Jones. He is the Georgia Republican Party 8th District Chair. Chan Jones. I bumped into Chan at the 9th District Senate debate over in Flowery Branch. And I asked him, I said, who do you think will make the runoff for U.S. Senate? And Chan Jones said, never count Governor Brian Kemp out. He said, never count Governor Brian Kemp out. I looked at him, I said, you know what, I don't know if I agree with that. I've got to absorb what you just said because Dooley's not even out of single digits. He said, don't count Brian Kemp out. It's okay. Okay, no problem. Now, so I go to Unadilla. Was this 4 weeks ago or whatever, 4 or 5 weeks ago, whatever it was. I go down to Unadilla, 2nd District. I bump into Chan again. 8th District, we're talking. Chan Jones told me that night Vernon Jones would be in the runoff. I said, you think so? Because I listen to, look, folks, whatever you may judge anyone around the state, I listen to everybody, talk to everybody, every side, right? He said, Vernon Jones. I said, you think so? He said, yes, he will. Okay. So I got to give him that 2 for 2, but I told you this. I'm not shocked that Tim Fleming's in this runoff, and I promise you I will go into further detail. Now, last but not least, please go vote for Rob Atkerson in the 11th District in the runoff. Stop John Cowan. All right, stop John Cowan from going. He doesn't even live in the 11th District. Please go vote for Rob Atkerson. And we close with this right here. Congratulations to our friend Charlize Byrd. The reason I want to give her the one shout out from the other night, Representative Charlize Byrd down there in Canton, state representative. Millions, and we will get into that, millions and millions of dollars poured in from the gambling associations. Yes. And one of the candidates they went after strong and funded against Charlize Byrd here, and she overcome it, and she's against the gambling. We'll talk about that later. So what do we get here now? How do we close this out, right? Let me say this. Thank you very much. I know I have something here I want to show you. Don't forget, you can go to our Substack, and you can follow us. You can text me. You can text me. Follow us on X, Facebook, Voice of Rural America, whatever. Get my articles. Now on Substack, I'm posting the articles. Like when I do the show, about 3 o'clock today, I'll have an article to go with the show. And then I'm also posting the audio of the article. Someone told me the other day, hey, I like you're doing that because when you write an article, I don't have time to read it. I'm driving down the road. I can hit the audio and you can get the audio version of the article. So, right. So we're going to take a brief break. Remember, that's how we end the show. We're going to take a brief break, and we're going to try to get back here tomorrow. I will see you later.
Do you already have your investments with Fidelity? I'm David Cross with U.S. Asset Management. Did you know that you can assign your investment management to my team and put my 35 years of experience to work for you? You simply assign us as your investment manager, and you keep the same username and password. Professional management, and you get to work with someone who shares your values. Call U.S. Asset Management today and put us to work for you.